What if your boss could pick your spouse, time your kisses, ban your belly button, and legally rename your newborn baby? Sounds completely insane, right? Well, old Hollywood actually pulled all of that off, plus locking actors inside sound stages for 12 hours with no bathroom breaks, dumping asbestos on them for fake snow, and turning their funerals into ticketed media circuses for extra profit. 81 of the dumbest, most ridiculous studio rules are loading up right now, and they get wilder with every single point. So smash that like button, drop your jaw in the comments, and subscribe before your brain refuses to believe humans actually agreed to any of this madness. 1. Imagine being told your forehead is too ethnic for America. Sounds insane, right? But Rita Hayworth actually lived through this nightmare during the 1930s. Studio executives in Hollywood literally hired technicians to burn off her hairline one root at a time using hot needles month after agonizing month. They wanted that all-American look, whatever that even means. Rita endured it silently while bosses smoked cigars and nodded approvingly, treating her scalp like a weird construction project they personally owned. 2. Hollywood once decided pregnancy was bad for business, and yes, that is exactly as horrifying as it sounds. Judy Garland and Bette Davis were both reportedly pressured by their studios into secret, illegal abortions back when those procedures were genuinely dangerous. The reason was pure greed. Executives believed an unmarried pregnant actress would ruin ticket sales, so they used morality clauses like legal weapons. These women had million-dollar careers, but zero say over their own bodies. Wall Street suits in Hollywood were basically playing God. 3. Joan Crawford had her back molars yanked out, and not because of cavities. Studio bosses in the late 1920s decided her face needed sharper cheekbones for the camera, so they sent her straight to a dentist with orders to extract perfectly healthy teeth. Joan walked into that office, sat down, and let them rip her molars out just to look more photogenic. She reportedly never complained publicly. Hollywood basically treated actresses like clay sculptures, except the sculpting tools were pliers and zero medical ethics whatsoever. 4. Child stars were treated like little caffeinated robots, and the studios called it good business. MGM allegedly pumped Judy Garland and others with amphetamines to keep them filming 20-hour days, then handed them barbiturates to crash for 4 hours of sleep. Wake up, repeat, smile for the camera. These were children. The studios acted as their legal guardians, which meant the people drugging them were also the people legally responsible for protecting them. America watched these kids on screen completely unaware of the chemistry experiment happening backstage. 5. Teenage actresses were literally taped down like fragile packages, and the studio saw nothing weird about it. Wardrobe departments would wrap canvas straps and heavy tape around young women every single morning to flatten their chests completely. Why? Because studios wanted them to keep playing innocent little girls well into their 20s. Imagine showing up to work, getting bound like cargo, then skipping around a set pretending to be 12. Hollywood executives genuinely thought this was normal business practice, and nobody in charge ever questioned it. 6. Skin tone was apparently a corporate decision back in old Hollywood, which is its own special kind of dystopian. Actresses who casting directors labeled too olive or too dark were forced into harsh chemical bleaching washes before stepping onto a soundstage. These washes literally burned their skin. Executives sat in offices deciding human complexions like they were paint swatches at a hardware store. Hollywood was supposedly selling the American dream, yet behind the curtain they were chemically scrubbing actual Americans into something they considered more marketable. 7. Before plastic surgery existed, studios invented their own terrifying version of a facelift. Aging stars would have their skin yanked back violently with rubber bands and industrial tape, all hidden under their wigs. Imagine sitting through a glamorous close-up while your scalp is being pulled towards your ears with hardware store supplies. Stars endured this agony for hours, smiling through every take. Hollywood executives basically duct-taped actresses into looking younger because the alternative was firing them. Glamorous on screen, medieval torture chamber off screen. 8. A quarter-inch of waistline could destroy your entire career, and that is not an exaggeration. Wardrobe departments at major studios were legally required to snitch on actresses whose waists expanded even slightly. The punishment was immediate unpaid suspension until that tiny measurement returned. Studios literally had quota police, armed with measuring tapes, hunting actresses down like food inspectors at a deli. America watched these women glide across screens effortlessly, never knowing their paychecks were being held hostage by a sliver of fabric. 9. Posture was apparently worth torturing actors over because old Hollywood loved a good medieval flourish. Young talent at certain studios were forced to rehearse for hours wearing rigid metal spinal braces hidden under their clothes. If they slouched even slightly, the brace would pinch them painfully as a reminder. Aristocratic grace, executives called it. Modern people would call it assault with workplace equipment. Actors walked around set looking elegant while secretly being jabbed by hidden metal contraptions designed by someone clearly auditioning for Villain of the Year. 10. White actors were banned from the beach, which sounds like the most California problem ever invented. Studios told their stars to stay out of the sun completely, no exceptions. No tans, no outdoor lunches, no umbrella-free strolls. The reason was bizarrely technical. Black and white film stock was calibrated to specific pale skin tones, and a tan would ruin the lighting setup. Stars basically lived like vampires under executive orders. Hollywood sold America a glamorous outdoor lifestyle while keeping its actors locked indoors like reverse houseplants. 11. Marriage in old Hollywood required permission from a corporate boss, which sounds like something out of a dystopian sitcom. Under the standard 7-year contract, actors had to submit a formal written request before walking down any aisle. The studio head could legally veto the wedding if he decided the partner might hurt ticket sales. Imagine asking your employer if you can marry your fiancée, then getting denied because your boss thinks she looks unmarketable. Hollywood executives basically ran a corporate dating app with absolute veto power. 12. Lavender marriages were Hollywood's most elaborate fake relationship scam, and the studios orchestrated every detail. Closeted gay stars were paired up with closeted gay co-stars and forced into legally binding marriages purely to fool the American public. These couples lived in separate bedrooms, attended events together, and smiled for fan magazines while hiding their actual identities. Studio publicists arranged everything like wedding planners with ulterior motives. America believed it was watching true love unfold while the actors were essentially signing business contracts disguised as romance. 13. Real divorce was banned during a film's release because nothing ruins ticket sales like reality. Even if an actor's marriage was crumbling spectacularly behind closed doors, contracts forbade them from filing legal paperwork until the movie finished its theatrical run. Couples were forced to pose for Happy magazine spreads while secretly hating each other. Hollywood basically froze human emotions on a corporate timeline. Audiences across America bought tickets believing in fairy tale love stories, completely unaware those marriages were already legally dead but contractually obligated to keep breathing. 14. Paternity lawsuits were apparently a corporate problem, not a personal one, in old Hollywood. If a baseball star got hit with a paternity claim, the studio legal team swooped in like a SWAT team of lawyers. They would intimidate the mother, throw money at the situation, and legally forbid the actor from ever acknowledging his own child. The studio's reputation always came first. Real American kids were quietly erased from their fathers' lives because some Hollywood executive decided fatherhood would damage the brand. Truly cinematic levels of cold. 15. Loretta Young's pregnancy turned into the wildest cover-up story Hollywood ever pulled off. The studio hid her away, faked a long illness, and dropped her newborn at an orphanage. Then they had Loretta legally adopt her own biological daughter to keep the secret airtight. Imagine adopting your own child just to keep your career alive. The kid grew up never knowing the truth for years. Hollywood executives basically scripted a soap opera in real life, complete with paperwork, lies, and a heartbreaking adoption that fooled the entire country. 16. Dating in old Hollywood meant getting your love life investigated like a federal crime. Before a star could be seen publicly with a new romantic interest, studio private investigators spent up to 6 months digging through that person's family history, politics, and any criminal records. Imagine asking someone out and then waiting half a year for corporate background check approval. Hollywood essentially ran its own dating bureau staffed with detectives. Regular Americans dated freely while their favorite stars needed a literal espionage operation just to grab dinner. 17. Young starlets were marketed as professional virgins, and the studios enforced it ruthlessly. Actresses were legally banned from nightclubs, alcohol, and being seen with men in public. Their entire image was wrapped around being pure, untouched, and innocent for ticket-buying fans. Studio publicists policed their every movement like overprotective chaperones with stock options. America was sold a fantasy of angelic young women, while those same women were trapped in contracts demanding lifelong sainthood. Hollywood basically franchised purity like a fast food chain selling identical menu items. 18. Fake dates were Hollywood's secret weapon, and stars had no choice but to attend them. Contracts required actors to go on completely staged romantic outings with co-stars from the same studio, all timed for paparazzi photographs. The point was generating buzz for upcoming films. These dinners were elaborate theater performances where two strangers pretended to be falling in love over breadsticks. Photographers conveniently appeared, headlines exploded, and audiences across America swooned over relationships that were essentially marketing campaigns dressed up in expensive cocktail attire. 19. Living together unmarried in old Hollywood was basically a financial death sentence. Landlords across town were secretly on studio payrolls, ready to evict unmarried couples the moment they were caught cohabitating. Then came immediate contract termination under lewd conduct clauses. Stars lost their careers and their apartments in the same afternoon. Hollywood essentially turned every apartment building into a surveillance operation. Regular Americans could shack up freely, but movie stars had landlords moonlighting as morality cops with eviction notices already pre-signed and waiting. 20. Fathering a child outside marriage triggered the most aggressive financial smackdown imaginable. If a male star slipped up, the studio seized his salary, quietly paid off the mother, and stripped him of all creative control over his films. The actor became a glorified employee with zero say. Hollywood basically punished stars by demoting them from artist to puppet overnight. America watched these men dominate the screen while behind the curtain they had less authority than a studio janitor. Corporate parenting at its absolute most ruthless and bizarre. 21. Imagine signing away your own name forever just to land a movie role. That is exactly what happened in old Hollywood. Actors literally surrendered legal rights to their birth names the moment they signed a studio contract. Lucille Lesh was transformed into Joan Crawford overnight, and she could never professionally use her real name again. The studio owned that identity like a trademark on cereal. America watched these stars sparkle on screen, never knowing their actual names had been buried in some executive's filing cabinet forever. 22. Studios invented entire fake biographies, and stars had no choice but to live the lies. If an actor came from a working-class immigrant family, publicists erased that history completely. They wrote fabricated hometowns, fake ancestors, and fictional childhoods that sounded prettier for fan magazines. Reporters printed these lies as gospel truth. Imagine reading about your favorite star growing up on a charming farm when they actually grew up above a butcher shop in Brooklyn. Hollywood basically ran a fan fiction factory disguised as a publicity department. 23. Quitting Hollywood meant losing your screen name forever, which is honestly diabolical. If an actor walked away or got fired, the studio kept exclusive copyright over the name they made famous. The performer could never use that name again in theater, radio, or anywhere else. Their entire identity was held hostage in a corporate vault. Imagine being known as Cary Grant nationwide, then being legally forced to introduce yourself as Archibald Leach again. Hollywood essentially owned stars like racehorses, branding included, with no expiration date attached. 24. Accents were treated like infectious diseases that needed immediate eradication. Stars with southern drawls, Midwestern twangs, or any foreign inflection were dumped into mandatory vocal coaching programs that resembled prisons. They had 1 year to master the mid-Atlantic accent, that fake aristocratic voice nobody actually spoke in real America. Fail the deadline and the contract was torn up instantly. Imagine being fired because you sounded too much like the actual place you grew up. Hollywood basically demanded everyone talk like a butler from nowhere. 25. Lying about your age was contractually required, which is honestly hilarious in the worst way. Actresses were forced to sign paperwork declaring fake birth years, making themselves younger on official documents. They could never publicly correct the lie either, or face massive fraud lawsuits. Imagine being 30 and contractually obligated to claim you are 22 for the rest of your career. Studios essentially turned actresses into living time machines, frozen at whatever age the executives decided was most marketable that particular quarter. Bureaucratic Botox, basically. 26. Existing spouses were erased from history if they were not famous enough. If an actor arrived in Hollywood already married to a normal person, studios pressured them into quiet divorces or aggressive secrecy. Heartthrobs needed to seem available for the audience to keep crushing. Imagine being someone's wife or husband and suddenly being treated like a ghost by the entire industry. Real American spouses were deleted from public existence so fans could daydream freely. Hollywood essentially used divorce papers as a publicity tool, then called it romance. 27. Politics were completely off limits, long before the Red Scare ever started panicking America. Contracts forbade actors from joining political organizations, attending rallies, or endorsing any local candidate without written executive approval. Stars had less political freedom than the average grocery store clerk. Imagine being a millionaire celebrity but legally banned from voicing an opinion on city council elections. Studio bosses essentially confiscated every actor's First Amendment rights and locked them inside a corporate safe. Hollywood preached freedom on screen and crushed it backstage simultaneously. 28. Religion was apparently another corporate decision because old Hollywood never knew when to stop meddling. Studios strongly encouraged actors to switch religious affiliations to match whatever idealized American neighborhood image they were selling that year. Bonuses and incentives were quietly attached to conversions. Imagine being told your faith was bad branding by a guy in a suit smoking a cigar. Real Americans across the country watched these stars and assumed their spiritual lives were genuine. Hollywood basically rebranded souls like discount cereal flavors, needing fresh new packaging. 29. Autographs were faked by an entire department, and fans never knew the difference. Studio publicists legally owned the right to forge actor signatures on merchandise, fan mail photos, and endorsement deals. Stars themselves often never even saw the products bearing their names. Imagine sending a heartfelt letter to your favorite movie idol, getting a signed photo back, and that signature was actually scribbled by some bored intern named Gary. Hollywood essentially mass-produced fake celebrity affection like a factory assembly line of professionally manufactured handwritten lies. 30. Death did not stop the studios from cashing in, which is the darkest twist imaginable. Contracts included clauses giving studios the right to use a star's likeness, voice, and name forever after the actor passed away. Peers received absolutely nothing. Imagine grieving your famous parent while watching corporations profit off their face decades later without sending the family a single dollar. Hollywood basically invented the eternal exploitation contract before computers even existed. Stars worked themselves to death and then kept working from beyond the grave. 31. Married couples could not share a bed on screen, which sounds like a joke but was deadly serious. The Hays Code forced every major studio to use 2 separate twin beds for couples, no matter how married the characters supposedly were. Even with a wedding ring and 3 kids in the plot, those mattresses stayed strictly apart. Imagine watching a passionate love story end with the husband and wife waving goodnight from opposite beds like dormitory roommates. Hollywood essentially turned marriage into a sleepover with stricter rules. 32. Kisses were timed with stopwatches, which is the most unhinged level of corporate micromanagement ever invented. On-set censors literally stood there with timers, clocking every romantic lip lock. 3 seconds was the legal maximum, and anything longer meant the film negative had to be burned. Imagine being 2 actors paid to fall in love while a guy in glasses counts down like a sports referee. Hollywood basically reduced passion to a stopwatch competition, where exceeding 3 seconds was apparently more dangerous than handing audiences live grenades. 33. Interracial eye contact was banned on screen, and yes, that is exactly as ridiculous as it sounds. Studios designed rules to keep black and white actors from holding prolonged direct gazes, all to keep films sellable in the segregated American South. Just looking at each other was somehow considered a financial threat. Imagine 2 performers sharing a scene and being instructed to stare at the wall instead of each other. Hollywood basically turned eyeballs into political weapons, treating basic human interaction like a forbidden cinematic explosion waiting to detonate. 34. Criminals were never allowed to win on screen, no matter how good the story was. Studio rules demanded every bad guy be captured, killed, or punished by the final frame. No exceptions, no clever endings, no morally gray finales. Imagine writing a brilliant heist movie and being told the thieves must trip on a banana peel and get arrested by the credits. Hollywood basically forced every screenwriter to deliver justice like a wholesome sermon, treating audiences like children who could not handle anything resembling actual real-life consequences. 35. Belly buttons were apparently national security threats because the censorship board completely lost its mind. Showing a female navel on screen was practically illegal, so costume designers invented bizarre solutions. High-waisted pants, giant fake gemstones, and flesh-colored patches were glued over the offending area to hide it from cameras. Imagine an entire industry employing professionals to defeat the menace of a tiny indentation in the human midsection. Hollywood basically declared war on belly buttons, treating them like glowing radioactive symbols of pure, unfiltered American moral collapse. 36. Toilets were banned from flushing on screen, which is somehow the most pathetic rule on this entire list. Studios outlawed any depiction or sound of a flushing toilet, claiming it violated public decency. Bathrooms apparently did not exist in the cinematic universe. Imagine writing a realistic family drama where nobody ever uses the restroom because executives think plumbing is offensive. Hollywood basically pretended the entire human race held it forever. America watched thousands of movies featuring 0 toilet sounds, completely oblivious that flushing was treated like genuine cinematic obscenity. 37. Jesus could not show his face on screen, and studios took this rule very personally. Mainstream productions were forbidden from depicting the physical face of Christ in any direct shot. He could only appear as a silhouette, a hand, or a mysterious figure filmed from behind. Imagine making a biblical epic where the main character spends the entire movie facing backward, like he forgot something important. Hollywood basically treated Jesus like a celebrity refusing photographs, hiding his face, while still expecting audiences to feel deeply spiritually moved. 38. Even animated animals had to follow strict sexual decency rules, which is absurd on every possible level. Studios monitored cartoon and live-action critters carefully, banning visible reproductive organs or suggestive cross-species flirting. Imagine being a professional adult tasked with reviewing animated rabbits for inappropriate body parts. Hollywood basically hired censors to inspect cartoon ducks for moral violations. America watched wholesome family films completely unaware that somewhere in a small office, grown men were scrutinizing every chipmunk drawing to ensure it remained anatomically appropriate for innocent young viewers. 39. Villain costumes were quarantined from real life like contaminated lab equipment. Actresses playing wicked or loose characters were legally banned from wearing those glamorous outfits outside the soundstage. Studios genuinely believed the bad aura of evil dresses could leak into the real world. Imagine being told a sequined gown might emotionally infect random pedestrians on Sunset Boulevard. Hollywood basically treated costumes like haunted objects from a horror film. America watched these stars portray sin freely on screen while their wardrobes were locked up afterward like cursed artifacts. 40. Good guys wore white hats and bad guys wore black, and that was actual studio law. Westerns and action films operated under rigid wardrobe codes, ensuring heroes always sported light colors while villains stayed dark. Audiences were never allowed even a moment of moral confusion. Imagine the entire moral universe of a film being determined entirely by hat selection. Hollywood basically reduced complex storytelling to laundry sorting. Cowboys could not be ambiguous, mysterious, or interesting because executives feared audiences might accidentally root for the wrong guy by mistake. 41. 7-year contract sounded reasonable until you realized only the studio held the renewal power. Every 6 months, executives could choose to extend the deal while actors had zero ability to negotiate, quit, or escape. Stars could be the biggest names on the planet and still legally trapped. Imagine becoming the most famous person in America while having less workplace freedom than a teenager flipping burgers. Hollywood basically invented corporate matrimony with no divorce option. Actors signed once and discovered their careers belonged to someone else entirely. 42. Refusing a terrible script triggered the most twisted punishment imaginable. Studios would suspend actors without pay, and the suspension days did not count toward their contract. That meant the 7-year deal could theoretically last forever. Stars who said no to embarrassing movies essentially extended their own sentences indefinitely. Imagine being grounded by your boss and discovering the punishment also added years to your job. Hollywood basically invented a corporate version of Groundhog Day, where saying no kept resetting the calendar back to day one forever. 43. Actors were loaned between studios like livestock at an auction, which is genuinely insulting. The home studio charged rival studios massive premiums to borrow their stars, then kept all the extra cash. The actors still received their tiny weekly contract wage as usual. Imagine being shipped across town to make a blockbuster while your original boss pockets the difference. Hollywood basically ran a celebrity rental service where everyone profited except the celebrity. Stars became human trading cards, swapped around boardrooms while never seeing a dime of bonus. 44. Studios charged actors for their own meals, makeup, and wardrobe fittings, which is the corporate scam of the century. Lower-tier contracted performers had paycheck deductions for everything they used on set, including food from the studio-owned commissary. Some stars worked entire weeks essentially for free after expenses. Imagine showing up to your dream job and discovering lunch costs more than your salary. Hollywood basically invented the company store from old coal mining towns, except with eyeliner and prop department fees instead of pickaxes and lanterns. 45. Back-end royalties simply did not exist for actors back then, which feels criminal in hindsight. Stars received a flat weekly fee during filming and absolutely nothing afterward. No box office percentage, no television royalties, no future home video residuals. A movie could earn millions for decades, and the actor saw zero additional pennies. Imagine starring in a film that becomes a cultural phenomenon, while your studio celebrates with champagne and you celebrate with an unchanged paycheck. Hollywood basically treated lifetime contributions like one-time grocery store transactions. 46. Natural disasters became excuses to freeze actors' salaries entirely, which is wildly opportunistic. If a fire, flood, or even a pandemic shut down production, studios used contract clauses to halt paychecks indefinitely. Meanwhile, the same contracts blocked actors from taking out side jobs to survive. Stars literally could not earn elsewhere while their primary income evaporated. Imagine being unemployed and legally forbidden from finding work. Hollywood basically weaponized natural disasters against its own employees, turning every earthquake or storm into a corporate excuse to stop paying people entirely. 47. Promotional tours were unpaid forced labor, disguised as glamorous adventures. Actors were contractually required to travel across America on grueling train tours promoting films for months at a time. Zero additional compensation was offered beyond their basic weekly salary. Imagine being shuttled through 40 cities in 3 months, smiling at strangers daily, while your paycheck remains identical to a quiet week on set. Hollywood basically turned its stars into traveling salesmen with bigger smiles. The glamour was real, but the bonus checks were imaginary fairy tales. 48. Studios literally owned the apartment buildings their young actors lived in, which is genuinely dystopian. Certain studios required new contracted talent to reside in specific studio-owned complexes. Executives could easily monitor guests' behaviors, curfews, and even who slept where. Imagine signing a movie contract and discovering your landlord is also your employer, is also your surveillance officer. Hollywood basically merged HR with property management and security in one creepy package. Young actors thought they were renting apartments, when really they were living in corporate observation cages. 49. Studio heads could fire actors instantly based on personal feelings about the last movie's profits. Dud clauses allowed executives to subjectively decide a film flopped and tear up contracts with zero severance. Stars went from millionaires to blacklisted overnight. Imagine losing your job because some cigar-smoking executive personally disliked your latest movie's box office numbers. Hollywood basically gave bosses divine authority over careers, ruling with whim instead of logic. Actors who built decades of fame could be erased in a single bad financial quarter. 50. Radio dramas and commercial endorsements were piled onto actors without any extra pay whatsoever. Studios forced their stars to record advertisements for cigarettes, soaps, and corporate sponsors purely because they could. Actors had no veto power and no compensation bonus. Imagine being a glamorous Hollywood icon contractually required to endorse a brand of laxatives you have never even tried. Hollywood basically rented out celebrities like billboards while keeping all the rental income. Stars hawked products they hated while the studio executives quietly counted the sponsorship checks. 51. Studios spied on stars inside their own homes, which sounds insane but was completely normal in old Hollywood. Full-time fixers and private investigators paid off maids, cooks, and chauffeurs to secretly report what actors did behind closed doors. Your housekeeper was basically a corporate informant. Imagine asking your butler for coffee while he scribbles notes for the executive boardroom upstairs. Hollywood basically turned every mansion into a surveillance facility, staffed by professionally bribed help. Stars thought they were home, but really they lived inside discreet little sound stages. 52. Diet logs were required hourly, and yes, every single crumb had to be documented. Certain studios forced performers to keep written records of every bite they consumed, signed daily by a studio-appointed nutritionist. Imagine reaching for one French fry and being legally required to write it down for executive review. Hollywood basically invented food paperwork before email existed. Stars spent their evenings filling out grocery confession forms like accountants doing taxes. The glamorous Hollywood lifestyle apparently included pencils, food journals, and quietly resenting every single piece of bread. 53. Asbestos was sprinkled on actors as fake snow, which is genuinely one of the most horrifying Hollywood facts ever. During winter scenes in films like The Wizard of Oz, studios poured pure chrysotile asbestos flakes onto performers because it photographed beautifully. Performers inhaled it, ate it, and got buried in it. Imagine singing about rainbows while a deadly carcinogen rains down on your costume. Hollywood basically chose visual aesthetics over basic survival. America watched magical snowy scenes, never knowing the snowflakes were essentially industrial poison floating gently onto Judy Garland. 54. Actors performed alongside actual untamed lions and bears, with zero safety glass or trained handlers nearby. Contracts before animal rights laws required stars to do stunts with apex predators that had not been properly tamed. Imagine showing up to work and finding a real bear waiting for your scene like a slightly hungry coworker. Hollywood basically rented wild animals like props and hoped for the best. Stars survived on pure luck while studios saved money. The fact that more actors did not get eaten remains genuinely shocking. 55. Leaving Los Angeles County required formal corporate permission, which sounds like science fiction. Contracted actors were legally forbidden from traveling more than 25 miles outside county borders without signed approval from the studio office. Want a weekend road trip? Submit paperwork. Want to visit family in San Diego? Submit more paperwork. Imagine being a millionaire celebrity who needs a permission slip to leave town like an elementary school field trip. Hollywood basically caged its stars inside an invisible geographic fence patrolled by executive bureaucrats and signed memos. 56. Gossip columnists were weaponized like nuclear missiles whenever actors asked for raises. Studios maintained shady agreements with vicious tabloid writers, ready to leak private medical or family secrets the moment a star pushed for better pay. Imagine asking your boss for a bump and seeing your most embarrassing secrets in tomorrow's newspaper. Hollywood basically blackmailed its own employees using newspaper columns as ammunition. Stars learned quickly that negotiating salary meant risking total public humiliation. Corporate retaliation never looked so glamorous, gossipy, and chillingly effective at silencing everyone immediately. 57. Stunt doubles were skipped on smaller films purely to save money, which is genuinely dangerous and incredibly cheap. Contracts forced actors to perform their own risky stunts, including horse falls, window jumps, and burning building escapes. Refusing meant immediate breach of contract lawsuits. Imagine being a romance star suddenly required to leap from a moving vehicle because the studio cut the budget. Hollywood basically gambled with human bones to protect the bottom line. Stars walked onto sets daily, wondering if today's scene might quietly become tomorrow's hospital trip. 58. Soundstage doors were locked from the outside during high-budget productions, trapping everyone inside for hours. Directors had legal authority to seal cast and crew indoors for up to 12 hours straight without bathroom breaks to meet deadlines. Imagine being a glamorous movie star and discovering the bathroom is essentially canceled until the schedule allows it. Hollywood basically operated like a workplace hostage situation, but with better lighting. Crew members held it for hours while executives outside celebrated efficiency. Real artistic vision apparently required removing the very basic biological breaks. 59. Toxic makeup was applied to actors playing monsters and aliens, and contracts waived all liability. Stars wore experimental cosmetics packed with lead, copper, and aluminum dust, even when the side effects included skin rot and organ damage. Imagine signing paperwork that essentially says the studio is not responsible if your face melts. Hollywood basically used actors as human guinea pigs for the chemistry department. America saw spooky creatures on screen completely unaware those performers were being slowly poisoned by their own foundation, blush, and prosthetic adhesives. 60. Friendships were dictated by formal corporate blacklists, which sounds like middle school but on industrial steroids. Morality clauses allowed studio bosses to compile written lists of forbidden people, politicians, or rival actors. Stars were legally banned from speaking to anyone on those lists publicly. Imagine being told who your friends can be by a man in a corner office holding a clipboard. Hollywood basically operated like a strict private high school with paychecks attached. Real adults navigated social lives through carefully approved guest lists drafted by paranoid Executive 61. Casting couch abuse was basically built into the contracts, which is genuinely sickening. Studio agreements were written with such vague, one-sided language that executives could demand sexual favors in exchange for roles with no legal recourse for actors. Systemic corruption protected the predators while crushing the victims. Imagine being a young dreamer, arriving in Hollywood and discovering the audition includes terms nobody warned you about. The industry basically institutionalized exploitation behind a beautiful Art Deco curtain. Decades of careers were built on horrors that paperwork conveniently buried forever. 62. Dressing rooms were ranked by square footage based on box office success, which is the pettiest hierarchy ever invented. Studio bylaws dictated exact dimensions, furniture quality, and even window counts depending on a star's current ranking. Walking into a higher tier's room uninvited was a finable offense. Imagine being penalized for sitting in the wrong celebrity chair. Hollywood basically gamified vanity like a corporate leaderboard. Stars obsessed over inches of carpet while executives measured everything like real estate agents conducting endless inspections of glorified, glamorous broom closets. 63. Life insurance policies listed the studio as the primary beneficiary, not the actor's family, which is twisted beyond belief. If a star died during a shoot, the studio collected the massive payout, while the grieving family received absolutely nothing. Imagine your spouse dying on set and discovering their employer just got rich off the tragedy. Hollywood basically profited from celebrity mortality, like a sinister vending machine. Stars unknowingly became insurance investments where their actual deaths were just another line item in some executives' profitable quarterly financial reports. 64. Personal investments outside Hollywood were banned to keep stars financially dependent on the studios. Certain contracts forbade actors from putting money into businesses, real estate, or stocks without direct oversight from corporate accountants. Imagine being a millionaire who is not allowed to buy a rental property because your boss disapproves. Hollywood basically chained financial freedom to the studio gates. Stars earned huge paychecks but could never quietly build independent wealth on the side. Executives understood that broke famous people stay obedient way longer than rich, financially secure ones. 65. War bonds became a forced donation scheme that secretly benefited the studios more than the soldiers. During wartime, actors were legally pressured into giving massive chunks of their salaries to government war bond drives. The studios collected huge corporate tax write-offs in return. Imagine being patriotic on paper while your employer pockets the financial reward. Hollywood basically used national emergencies as accounting hacks. Stars genuinely thought they were helping America while executives celebrated with cigars over the impressive corporate deductions their employees' patriotism just generously delivered straight to them. 66. Motorcycles, convertibles, skiing, and horseback riding were all banned because stars were apparently corporate assets, not people. Studios outlawed risky hobbies entirely to protect their physical investments. Imagine being a wealthy adult told you cannot go skiing because a film executive thinks broken ankles damage profitability. Hollywood basically wrapped its stars in bubble wrap and called it contract management. Real Americans enjoyed weekends freely, while celebrities were trapped in corporate playpens. The glamorous lifestyle apparently meant zero motorcycles, zero open-top cars, and basically zero genuine personal freedom whatsoever. 67. Military service became a propaganda goldmine, and stars had no choice but to participate. When male actors enlisted during wartime, studios embedded full-film crews directly into their training camps. Real combat preparation was filmed and repackaged into profitable propaganda movies. Imagine joining the army to serve your country and finding a camera crew waiting at boot camp like uninvited wedding photographers. Hollywood basically turned actual military sacrifice into corporate content. Stars sweated through real training while executives back home collected ticket sales from their literal blood, dirt, and bruises. 68. Alcohol was banned for actors on set while executives kept fully stocked bars in their own offices, which is peak hypocrisy. A single drop of liquor on a performer's breath meant immediate unpaid suspension. Meanwhile, studio bosses casually sipped whiskey all afternoon between phone calls. Imagine being fired for smelling like brunch while your manager is openly drunk by lunchtime. Hollywood basically operated under two completely different rulebooks depending on who signed your paychecks. Power simply meant the freedom to enjoy luxuries. Everyone else got contractually forbidden from touching. 69. Baby names required studio approval, which is honestly the most invasive thing imaginable. If a top star had a child, certain studios reserved the right to legally approve or alter the name to ensure it sounded cinematic and avoided trademark conflicts. Imagine naming your newborn and getting a polite rejection letter from a corporate branding committee. Hollywood basically extended its meddling fingers into actual maternity wards. Real American parents picked baby names freely while celebrities essentially submitted nursery paperwork for executive review before the birth certificate ever got officially printed. 70. Actresses could not pick their own Academy Awards dresses, which is bizarre on every conceivable level. Studio costume designers chose the outfits, and stars were legally required to wear whatever was selected. Personal fashion taste was completely irrelevant. Imagine walking the most photographed red carpet in the world wearing something you hated because your employer demanded it. Hollywood basically treated awards night like a corporate dress code enforcement event. Stars smiled glamorously for cameras while privately wishing they could burn the gown and find something they actually liked instead. 71. Talking to the press required a studio publicist sitting beside the actor with cut-off power, which is wildly controlling. No interviews, comments, or quotes could happen without corporate supervision. Imagine answering a simple question from a reporter and watching your handler interrupt mid-sentence, like a parent intervening at dinner. Hollywood basically muzzled its stars while pretending to celebrate them. America heard charming celebrity quotes daily, never realizing those words were essentially pre-approved scripts. Real conversations were replaced by carefully filtered corporate dialogue passed through publicists like nervous translators. 72. Sick actors could not see their own family doctors, which is genuinely unhinged. Studios required performers to be treated by retained physicians who frequently misdiagnosed injuries on purpose to rush stars back onto set. Imagine breaking your ankle and being told it is just a sprain because the schedule needs you tomorrow. Hollywood basically operated its own medical system, optimized for profit instead of healing. Stars trusted these doctors completely, never realizing the prescriptions and diagnoses were essentially designed to serve filming deadlines instead of actual human bodies. 73. Fake family photo shoots were contractually required, even when households were openly miserable. Stars whose children resented them due to overwork were still forced into staged holiday photographs for fan magazines multiple times yearly. Imagine smiling next to a kid who genuinely cannot stand you while a photographer adjusts the lighting. Hollywood basically manufactured wholesome families like sitcom episodes. America flipped through magazines admiring picture-perfect celebrity Christmas mornings, completely unaware those families had not spoken pleasantly in months and only assembled together strictly because the contract demanded it. 74. Live theater was completely banned once an actor signed a movie contract, which is genuinely insulting to performers. Studios viewed Broadway and local stage work as an unprofitable waste of physical energy. Imagine being a brilliant theatrical talent and being legally forbidden from ever performing live again. Hollywood basically caged stage actors in sound stages forever. Real Americans across the country attended Broadway shows freely while contracted stars were locked out of their own art form. The same skill that built their careers was now contractually labeled corporate competition. 65. Stars filmed the same movie multiple times in different languages, phonetically memorizing dialogue they did not understand. Before dubbing technology improved, performers reshot entire scenes in Spanish, German, and beyond. Imagine acting passionately in a language you cannot read while a coach whispers syllables between takes. Hollywood basically turned actors into multilingual parrots reciting noises with no comprehension. America watched these stars worldwide assuming they were fluent, when really they were just memorizing sound sequences like preschoolers learning lullabies. The exhaustion levels apparently were absolutely brutal. 76 wax. Quitting one studio could ruin your entire family, thanks to cross-studio gentlemen's agreements. If an actor walked out due to abusive conditions, secret clauses prohibited any major Hollywood studio from hiring their immediate relatives. Imagine standing up for yourself and discovering your sister, brother, and cousins are also now blacklisted citywide. Hollywood basically punished bloodlines for individual rebellion. Family members suddenly found doors slammed shut everywhere through no fault of their own. The industry essentially treated entire households like collective hostages bound by their loudest members' choices. 77. Torn costumes meant deducted paychecks at wildly inflated retail prices, which is comically petty. If an actor accidentally damaged a wardrobe piece, scuffed a prop, or dented a set, studios legally subtracted full replacement costs from their next paycheck. Imagine ripping a stitch and losing hundreds of dollars. Hollywood basically nickel-and-dime stars like landlords charging for nail holes. Performers worked exhausting hours only to discover small accidents instantly evaporated chunks of their salaries. The studios profited from clumsiness while pretending to be artistic, creative havens of cinematic brilliance. 78. Funerals were turned into ticketed media spectacles by studios, which is darkly unbelievable. If an actor died under long-term contract, the studio legally took over the funeral planning entirely. Burials became star-studded promotional circuses generating revenue. Imagine grieving your spouse while executives sell admission to their casket viewing. Hollywood basically monetized mortality with industry-grade efficiency. Real Americans mourned loved ones privately, while celebrity families watched corporate publicists schedule wake events alongside film premieres. Even the final goodbye became another marketing opportunity wrapped in flowers and ticket stubs. 79. Actors were forced into bizarre product endorsements they personally despised, with studios pocketing every cent. Stars appeared in print ads for laxatives, toxic cleaning chemicals, and questionable health tonics, none of which they actually used. Imagine being a glamorous icon contractually obligated to smile beside a bottle of industrial bleach. Hollywood basically rented out celebrity faces like billboards while keeping all advertising income. Performers gritted their teeth through embarrassing campaigns while executives celebrated each new sponsorship check. Personal dignity apparently was always negotiable for the right corporate fee. 80. Script input was completely forbidden unless an actor reached legendary status, which is genuinely demeaning. Contracts specifically classified performers as unskilled laborers with zero authority over dialogue. Imagine being the face of a film, yet having less creative power than the catering manager. Hollywood basically silenced its own talent on artistic decisions. Stars memorized whatever was written, no matter how ridiculous, complaining only privately. The industry essentially treated performers like animated mannequins, valuable for appearances and voices, but never trusted with real opinions about the actual storytelling. 81. The infamous Olivia de Havilland lawsuit finally cracked the 7-year contract scam wide open in 1943. Until then, studios argued that a calendar year only counted days actors were actively smiling and working on set. That meant suspensions could stretch contracts essentially forever. Imagine signing a 7-year deal and watching it secretly balloon into a lifetime sentence. Hollywood basically operated like a corporate prison with creative math behind the scenes. Olivia fought back one and finally freed every contracted star from one absurd legalized eternal loophole. And there you have it, 81 of the most unhinged, glamorous, and downright criminal studio rules ever invented, where executives controlled marriages, faked pregnancies, banned belly buttons, poisoned actors with toxic makeup, and treated humans like rented furniture between studio lots. Old Hollywood was basically a glittery dumpster fire wrapped in pearls, fur coats, and bad legal advice. Somehow America ate it all up with popcorn. So tell me down in the comments which insane rule made your jaw actually hit the floor. Smash that like button if you survived this chaotic ride, and subscribe to Dumb Old Hollywood, because honestly, your weekly dose of vintage celebrity nonsense is just getting started. And trust me, the next video is even more ridiculous than this one.